Okay, then I go to this mathematics stuff. There have been a lot of research on the early development of mathematics, and during last 20 years, different this very basic cognitive studies and neurocognitive studies. They have and then some innovative methods in developmental psychology. They have opened new understanding of this early development, and there seems to be that human beings have this kind of innate predispositions for understanding quantitative information or quantitative situations, and now there clearly seems to be two systems. There is this so-called approximate number system, so that but that's not only small children but also animals seems to be able to recognize which set of items is bigger if the ratio is big enough. But if they are close to each other, only then more experienced and older people can or older children can recognize it. But if the ratio is big enough, so already infants can recognize which set of items is bigger. Which that takes too much time to go to these habitation experiment methods which have been made it possible to study this kind of issues. But these are very innovative developmental psychology methods. And similar findings come from cognitive neuroscience that this kind of this approximate number system exists. But this is not about exact number. This is just noticing this the difference if the ratio is big enough in the sets. But then there is other kind of ability, which is so-called object tracking. Now I didn't object tracking system that which makes it possible for already an infant and also for many animals to recognize very small numerosities, and for example seeing the difference between 2 and 3, or 1 and 3, or 1 and 2, but not anymore between 4 and 5, for example. So this doesn't work anymore with this system. Okay, now it's the large agreement that this is a kind of, this initial number sense is a kind of starting point for developing numerosity. And then we have the kind of culturally mediated or culturally developed mathematical knowledge, number words, number system, mathematical operation, counting processes, and so on. A lot of these kind of things which are cultural in origin. And then how this combination happens. The kind of standard explanation is that, okay, then in families, parents are telling, helping students to learn to count and using counting words, teaching them the words, and then it is somehow connected to the initial number system. It is still a little bit open that how that exactly happens, this connection, but basically the idea is that this. But when we started to look carefully this early development of number concept, we were thinking that this cannot be the whole story, but there is something else, and this is the children's own mental activity and practice with numbers and quantities, which happens also when there is no guidance, when nobody is telling them that, okay, now this is about numbers, now we count, but what happens independently of adult guidance. the origin for these activities can be triggered, so that they have triggered in social interaction with others. But this kind of self-initiated practice seems to be something which children do. And we started to look that much more carefully, and our empirical studies made it possible to propose a new concept, which is that spontaneous focusing on numerosity, which makes this self-initiated practice possible. And if you think a situation when person notices that there are two of something or three of something, then it means that the person have to focus the attention to this the numerosity aspect in the world, and then the carving up of the set of these objects is the other aspect of that. It is not an automatic process. If we come into this room, it is not that we automatically, in a way, see different numerosities. We only see the numerosities if we focus on the numerosity of something. For example, how many chairs or how many papers here is. And so that this is a kind of, it is not necessarily conscious, but it is a kind of active focusing process which happens. And so this focusing on numerosity is a separate sub-process of then exact enumeration, where we before we notice these numbers. And now when we use the term spontaneous, it focuses on that this happens spontaneously in a concrete situation, but it doesn't refer to the origin, because this is very important, so that we believe that this tendency to spontaneously focus on numerosity is very much triggered by interaction with adults. Of course, there can be many things to do that, but okay, this is the background. And how we came to this kind of findings? We started to experiment with very young children, so that these were about 2 years old children, and we had many kind of situations. This is one situation. We had this bird figure, which is called vaakku. And then the story was that bird likes very much berries, and then we cannot see here is a plate where we have this kind of glass, small glass pieces which looks like berries, and then the experimenter say, now look carefully what I do. And then she takes a berry, put it in the mouth of that bird, and when it goes down, we can still hear "cop." And then put one berry, and then the second berry, and then say the child, "Okay, look what I did. Do exactly what I did." And then when we observe the situation, there are children who put all the berries from that plate to the mouth, or just put one berry into the mouth. And then there are other children who systematically put exactly the same amount of the berries in the mouth than the experimental did. And then that was repeated many times with a little bit different berries, different figures, and there were also different forms. This is another type, that there was a dinosaur figure, and then there were two pictures. The experimenter had one, and the child had another one, and then the experimenter took a stamp and made these spikes in the her her figure and then turned it upside down, and then told the child, do exactly what I did. And then again, some children put all kind of spikes to their or practically everywhere when it is possible to do it, or then just randomly did that. And some children always exactly the amount of spikes the experimental had made. And then there were many other tasks that have been used, and so it was clear that there were relatively stable tendencies in children in these situations where they had no idea that this has nothing to do with numbers. That was important in these studies, that was completely unknown, that is nothing to do with numbers, but they focus on the numerosity. And then some others didn't notice on the numerosity. So then for a bit later, as children, we used this kind of figures that we did say a series of this kind of figures, and we asked them to explain these figures. And again the same. Those children who did pay attention to numerosity, they reported the number of trees, for example. And interestingly, we still found these differences among adults by using these picture tasks. And